I fully suspect that notifications are not going out on this one very well. I can pretty much foresee that happening right away, or not happening right away. But anyway, welcome to the channel, MBRR Media. This is the Black Robe Regiment. I am TC, host, founder, and originator of the show and all of its platforms. AVA first in the house. Good to see AVA. I hope you're plugging this. Lady Jen, thanks for being here. Good to see you. Hope that everyone is well. I've been getting sun. Can you tell? I've been getting some sun. Also keeping the weight down. I got down to 176.8 the other day and then bounced back up to 180, and then I got back down below 180 again today. So part of that's because I didn't hardly eat yesterday. I was so busy. I got home super late, and then I ate late. Then I only had 3 pork chops and a keto bagel. So, but anyway, shout out to all the channel members. Thanks for being channel members. If you're not a channel member yet and you want to support the work that I do, I have an entry-level Act Localist. Would love to have you there. There's also a show producer credit for the highest level here on YouTube and over at Subscribestar. So shout out to IMAF from Subscribestar for being a show producer level supporter from there. Big thanks to my moderators, who 98% of the time it's my moderators and only my moderators in the chat, which, you know, it's fine. I actually, it feels more community based, more conversational that way. So I'm looking forward to today's topic just because I think it's something that needs to be addressed. As many of you know, Skipper and I from over on Veteran Nation, Skipper and I have our regular show, Vet Nation Live, and sometimes Skipper and I have friendly debates, and I get, you know, I go on my rants at times. I go on my little screeds, and that's, you know, that's one of the things that makes Skipper and I work well together. Skipper is the light side. Skipper gets serious, and he can get very Skipper can be very serious at times, but we mesh well together because Skipper tends to be a little bit more lighthearted, and I tend to be dry humor, straight humor, and also a little bit more serious. And so I've gotten some pushback for some of my views from people because I'm not, you know, rabidly in the pro-Trump camp, and I'm also very much an anti-interventionist. I do not believe that the United States has any business running around the world policing the world at all. And our founding fathers warned us that if we were to go around the world looking for monsters to slay, to take down, we will eventually become the monster that we're seeking. And as is true of most children, and we are, if you want to look at it in that sense, we are the offspring of our forefathers. And we tend to not listen to our forefathers when they give us a warning. And so our forefathers, Washington told us not to get into any entangling alliances with foreign countries. And once again, like I said, we were warned to not go around the world looking for, monsters to slay. And that's exactly what we did. We did the exact opposite. We went around the world looking for monsters to slay, and we've gotten ourselves involved with entangling alliances that we should not, by any stretch of the imagination, be involved in. We should not, by any stretch of the imagination, be allied with any country. That's what an alliance is. It's being allied. Now, that doesn't mean that we can't, and those are entangling alliances. In other words, you become so enmeshed in that allied position that you cannot extricate yourself, you cannot remove yourself from that alliance. That's why they say entangling alliances. Now, in no greater place can we find ourselves in an entangling alliance than two places. One is NATO. We are in an entangled alliance with the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. We cannot remove ourselves from NATO without basically causing hell to rise on the face of the earth, because the United States basically funds all of NATO, operates everything for NATO, and decides everything for NATO. And some people would say that's the same way with the UN. Yes and no. I hate the UN. I despise the UN. I despise NATO. I don't think we should be in the UN. I don't think we should be in NATO. If I had to pick between NATO and the UN, I would probably still pick NATO, just because NATO has fewer individual sovereign countries involved with it than does the UN. But it's still a war machine. It is a mechanism of war. That's what it exists for. And Article 5 of the NATO agreement flat out states that if one NATO country is attacked, bombed, invaded, and those are all acts of war. Bombing is an act of war, invasion is an act of war, any kind of attack is an act of war. If a nation in NATO has an act of war done upon it, all the other nations are obligated to come to the aid of that country. That is an entangling alliance. Now, NATO is one of the two that come to the front of my mind most often. The most serious entangling alliance that we have is with geopolitical Zionist Israel. And for the life of me, I don't know why we are so boldly aligned with Israel. GZI that's what I call Israel. GZI is in no way, shape, or form an ally to the United States. We benefit nothing. No, there is no benefit to the United States. There's no benefit to we the people of the United States to be involved with Israel and her designs on the Middle East. And it goes on being just merely an alliance. It is being in an entanglement with Israel has caused every war that we have been involved in, every conflict that we have been involved in the Middle East has come directly on the back of our entangled alliance with Israel. Not to mention the fact that we got involved in that entangling alliance with Israel, despite the fact that Israel was incredibly hostile to us as a country before 1948 and even after 1948. So in 1946, Ben-Gurion, who was the first prime minister of Israel in 1948, was a militia leader. And I don't mean a militia like we think of it in the United States. It was a terrorist organization. Ben-Gurion was a commander of this covert terrorist organization that was focused on causing as much turmoil and terror in the Palestinian region as it could possibly cause, so as to drive off the original inhabitants of Palestine, the Palestinian Jews, the Palestinian Christians, the Palestinian Muslims. They wanted that land, and they would, prior to 1946, they would attack markets, they would attack hotels, they would attack bars, restaurants, and movie theaters. And in one particular case, these militant terrorist Zionist groups attacked a movie theater, throwing live grenades, raining live grenades into this movie theater in the Palestinian lands, or in these Palestinian villages. They just rained these grenades in and devastated the people inside, men, women, and children. And these are facts. Like, you don't have to just take my word for it. Who benefited the most from 9/11? Yeah, absolutely. If you guys don't know about that one, look up Silverstein's investments. Now, in 1946, Ben-Gurion, this radical militant commander of this terrorist organization, orchestrated an attack on the King David Hotel in Jerusalem. And Jerusalem, yes. And this was in 1946, while the Palestinian Authority was Great Britain, and the United States was working with Great Britain to help with maintaining peace and order there, because after the fall of the Ottoman Empire in World War I, Great Britain seized control of that region of the Ottoman Empire and claimed it as part of the British Empire. And so they seized Palestine, the Levant, and had control of it. And so in seizing it, they agreed to manage the population there. And Ben-Gurion and his people did not want Great Britain and the United States there anymore. So in 1946, Ben-Gurion orchestrated this terrorist attack on the King David Hotel. They smuggled explosives into the basement shops of the hotel, set them up in the strategic places, and then set them off. And when they set them off, they basically destroyed the King David. And it was at that point that Great Britain said, "We've had it. We're done. We don't want anything to do with this anymore." The U.S. and Great Britain kind of packed up their bags, took their toys, and went home, and it was 2 years later that they recognized Israel, as led by Ben Gurion, as a country, and as Ben Gurion as our prime minister. So that established formal diplomatic relations. But that wasn't enough for Israel. Israel then orchestrated what became known as the Leavon Affair. And this was a move by intelligence assets, basically one of the earliest versions of the Mossad. Well, it was Mossad. But these intel assets, they orchestrated Egyptian Jews, so Egyptians who were Jewish and loyal to Israel and others, and established them as sleeper cells in Egypt and other places, but in particular in this case with the Leavon Affair. They set up what was to be attacks on U.S. and British and other allied powers on their embassies in Egypt. Now, Egyptian authorities caught wind of this terrorist espionage, these terrorist attacks, and what they learned was that they were using these people to dress, look, act, speak, and behave like Egyptian Arabs. Their goal was to conduct these attacks to pass themselves off as Muslim militants attacking these Western countries and their embassies in acts of what they wanted to pass off as militant Muslim behavior. This was virtually unheard of at the time. And so the Egyptians caught wind of this. They broke up the spy ring and ended up arresting these Mossad agents and these Egyptian Jews, these loyalists to Israel, and imprisoning them, some of them for quite a long time. And it was in this time frame. So after Israel is made into a nation in 1948 by decree, and then you have the King David Hotel bombing, you have the Leavon Affair, you then in 1967 you have the Arab states deciding that they're going to attack Israel. Israel sees that they're coming in 1967, closing in on their borders, and Israel does what Israel did what Israel has always done, and they launched preemptive first strikes in the 6 Days War on the Arab Muslim countries that were attacking them. They launched preemptive self-defense strikes. That's how they describe it. In that process in June of 1967, they also attacked the United States ship, the USS Liberty. The USS Liberty was a listening ship. It was an intel ship. And it was flying the American flag. And it was off the coast of Israel, flying the American flag. And the Israelis knew that they were there. And they attacked the ship in multiple waves. And in the first wave, they targeted antenna and other communications equipment. And then they came back with more waves of attacks, with torpedo boats and more fighter attacks. Their goal was to kill all of the sailors on the USS Liberty and sink the Liberty. And it's been detailed years after the fact that their goal in sinking the Liberty and killing all witnesses to the fact that it was Israeli planes and Israeli torpedo boats that attacked the Liberty. They wanted the Liberty sunk. They wanted the Liberty sailors dead so that the United States would get involved in the 6 Days War and fight the Arab countries along with Israel. Now, in between the 6 Days War in 1967 and the inception of Israel as a geopolitical power, you have in 1953, and I talked about this in my last Drive Time Dialectic, so if you want to know more about this, you have Operation Ajax that went into effect, where the United States, working with Great Britain, overthrew a very popular Iranian nationalist prime minister, installing and protecting the Shah as the sole power in Iran, leading to years of tyranny, and then basically causing the uprising of the Iranian Islamic Republic, and the revolt there, and and deposing the Shah, having him exiled from Iran, and that causing the hostility that we see today between Iran and Israel and Iran and the United States. And as I said before, and I'm kind of getting tired of having to tell people this, I don't like Iran as it is now. I love the Iranian people. I don't like the Iranian government. I don't like the Iranian government. I despise the Iranian government. I despise them just as much as I despise Israel's government. Geopolitical Israel, geopolitical Zionist Israel, is not the Israel of the Bible. And I despise geopolitical Zionist Israel. I despise Benjamin Netanyahu. I despise the Likud party. I despise the Israeli Defense Forces because of the things that they do. And I tell you all this, I give all of this background because not everybody who watches this is going to be aware that on Sunday's Vet Nation Live, I explained my position and why I believe the things I believe and why I hold to them, and it caused a stir. And I get it's an unpopular position. It's especially with most Trump voters, but it's also a very unpopular position with a lot of people who aren't fully in the Trump camp. It's a very unpopular position with a lot of people who consider themselves to be Christian. Zionism, dispensational theology within Christianity has led to the embrace of Zionism and seeing geopolitical Israel as like God's country. That's why I made a post on Facebook yesterday saying there is no such thing as the Holy Land. The Bible knows nothing of the Holy Land. God does not look at this geographical area and think that it is more holy than any place else. In fact, I would tell you, based on what we know and what God says and why he had the first temple destroyed and why he had the second temple destroyed, is because he despises what is going on with the temple, because he doesn't need the temple anymore. And you literally have Christians talking about wanting to take part in rebuilding the third temple, or rebuilding the temple for the third time. There are Christians who will tell you, we need to help rebuild the temple. Rebuilding the temple would be, in God's eyes, if you're a Christian, you cannot get around this. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. If you disagree with this, you're not disagreeing with TC, you're disagreeing with God. If you want to rebuild the temple for geopolitical Zionist Israel, you are actually taking part in the abomination, according to God, not according to TC, it's according to God. God destroyed the temple. He used the Romans to do it in AD 66, which was the diaspora, if you will, where Jews and Christians fled Jerusalem, fled Israel, fled Palestine, because the Romans had had enough. They were tired of the Jewish uprisings, and they said, enough's enough, we're going to destroy your temple. And they destroyed it so thoroughly, buffered. The Romans were so angry about the rebellious heart. Okay, fine. I don't care if you don't want to listen. Now you know how I feel about the repeated talk of what the hell stuff. They destroyed the temple so thoroughly, and there again, it was God who wanted the temple destroyed, not the Romans. The Romans just worked as a tool. They destroyed the temple so thoroughly that the gold from the temple was running down the gutters of the street that were once used to funnel the blood from the sacrifices at Passover. That's how thick the gutters were with gold. The fires were so intense it melted the gold, and it ran down the streets. So if you want to take part, if you claim you're a Christian and you want to take part in rebuilding the temple, you are literally violating the dictates of God. God does not need a temple. God has actually declared that the temple it serves no purpose. Because, according to Christian theology, the biblical theology, going all the way back to the Old Testament, the end goal was the Christ being the temple of God. That you as a Christian are the temple of God because you are the dwelling place of the Holy Spirit on earth. Be safe. I'm sorry you're getting hit with a bad storm. So there are Christians today who have fallen for the lie of dispensationalism and rush in and to take part in everything that is Israel. I'm not pointing at any one person, Lady Jen. Just so you know, I'm talking in a very broad sense. So there are Christians, especially American Christian dispensationalists, who are so enamored with Israel because they've been told that the Schofield Bible is the only proper way of reading and understanding theology. That and Darby and Schofield were dispensationalists. They were the fathers of dispensationalism. Barely 200 years ago. Just a little over 200 years ago. Dispensationalism has been around less time than the United States. How's that? Fully functional as far as the discovery of the United, the North American continent and whatnot. So it's an error that has led a lot of people astray, and so they really, really focus on giving Israel everything that they want. And I'm here to say, I hate Israel and I hate Iran. I hate their governments, not their people. I hate Zionism. I don't hate Jews, I hate Zionism. Because Zionism is not just a Jewish belief. Zionism is a belief that arcs across multiple thought patterns. Lady Linda Early, I don't understand the point of your comment. says that we are the temple of God, and we have a duty to take care of ourselves as best as possible, but we also have to recognize that with age and infirmities, things happen. We can't always have these immaculate, bodies. We're all meant to die. And with this curse of sin with sin comes the curse of death. No one can live forever because all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. So your body does break down and you die. And so all of these things, all of these teachings, dispensationalism and whatnot, all of these things have led people to have... Oh, okay. Thank you for clarifying, Lady Linda. I really appreciate that. All of these things have caused a mass amount of confusion, which has then impacted these allegiances and these alliances, and where we have politicians now like Ted Cruz saying things like, I said from day one when I took office in the Senate that I was going to be the biggest defender of Israel. Now, somebody explain to me how that is the role of a United States Senator. And Ted Cruz speaks for the vast majority of U.S. senators. Ted Cruz speaks for the vast majority of people holding office at the federal level in the United States when he speaks that way. Because of these flawed understandings of Scripture, because of these errant views of what is Israel and who is Israel and the importance of a landmass in the Middle East. And so in my conversation, it was mostly with Skipper, and Skipper and I don't always agree on this issue, but I could speak with Skipper on this issue in a way that I cannot speak with others. And this is an open invite to anybody who knows Skipper and I. If you're watching this and you don't like what I'm saying, I would love to have a conversation with you. I would invite you to reach out to Skipper and I and offer to sit down and have a friendly debate on the topic of Israel and Iran, the history of Israel. So I would really love to have you, come into the show, into the stream sometime and have a friendly debate. You can lay out your best argument and I'll lay out my arguments. And we'll historically and philosophically and whatnot, we will rely on what history has said about these things. Hey, Tav, good to see you, man. Thanks. Everybody say hello to Tav. If you haven't subscribed to The Angry Vet, you need to, by the way. He is out there fighting for vets along in much the same way that Vet Nation fights for vets. Man, Tav, you never have to apologize. I know how busy you are, so I love having you stop in when you can. You're always on my mind. You know that. You are constantly on my mind. I just don't reach out as much as I should because I know how busy you are and I don't want to hassle you. So, as I was saying, if somebody wants to sit down and have this conversation live on Vet Nation with me, with Skipper kind of working as a moderator in the debate, I would love to do it. I would love to have a debate about the United States being involved with Israel, about the United States being involved in bombing foreign countries, especially in the Middle East. We need to get out of the Middle East. We have nearly 1,000 bases all over the world. And here's where I'm going to talk about horrible apologetics and really bad arguments. In my conversation with Skipper and some others on Sunday, in reading the comments, I saw some of the worst things I have ever seen from people when it comes to making justifications for all of the normative positions that people who consider themselves patriots to hold. Like, I made a comment about how bad law enforcement needs to be reformed because the institution of policing is corrupt. Taft's here. He knows. He will back me up on this. AVA will back me up on how corrupt the institution of policing is. It's not to say that every single cop is exactly the same as every other cop, but it is to say that the institution is corrupt. And somebody said, the cops aren't bad. Well, that's patently... Oh, I don't do what I do to have a big successful channel. This has been my meat and potatoes from day one, so if I don't grow, I don't grow. If government sucks, that's right. So if people can't recognize that law enforcement needs massive reform, I'm not the problem. The people who recognize that law enforcement needs massive reform aren't the problem. It's a you problem, not you guys per se, because it needs reform. And so in that conversation as well, then another person, when I was talking about the fact that if we really love our troops, if we love our sailors, if we love our guardsmen, and our national guardsmen, our reservists, our Marines, our airmen, our Coast Guardsmen, if we love them and we want to see them safe and we want to protect them and we don't want to be creating these veterans that need all the help that they need, the best way to do that is to stop having wars. Because, and we have wars, because we've got nearly 1,000 military bases around the world, many of them in the Middle East. And why do we have so many in the Middle East? Because we've destroyed and destabilized the Middle East. Going back decades and decades, we've been meddling in the affairs of the Middle East for so long. And so we have to have bases there because we involve ourselves, we insert ourselves into all of these things that are going on in the Middle East. All because Israel wants them done. The first Gulf War, we were told by Israel that Iraq needed to fall. Yes, the USA needs to get back to taking care of the USA, 100%. Yes, imagine how secure our borders could be if we had troops on the borders instead of protecting Israel and Syria. So we've got all these troops all over the world. There are Minnesota National Guard troops occupying Syria right now. People from my state are in flippin' Syria right now. Why? And I made the comment on Sunday that if we would bring our troops home, we wouldn't have to worry about whether or not they were in reach of Iran, and we wouldn't have to worry about pissing Iran off to the point where they want to nuke anybody. Now, once again, I don't like Iran, but what moral authority does the United States have to tell Iran or any other country they can't have a nuke? Because of all the countries with nuclear weapons, only one country has ever dropped nuclear weapons, used nuclear weapons in anger, in warfare. What country is that, folks? Can you name it? What country that likes to run around the world now and tell everybody else what kind of weapons they can and cannot have? What country dropped the nukes? The United States dropped the nukes, and they'll claim it was to end the war, because if we didn't do that, it was going to cost millions and millions of lives. They claim it, but there's no proof of that. And so we preemptively struck Iran in an attack, in an act of war. I'm sorry, folks. Oh, Lady Linda, thank you. Thank you so much, Lady Linda. That's awesome. Thank you for that super chat. That is very generous. I wasn't, wow. I wish I could show everybody. But thank you so much for that. If we could just bring our troops home, if we could stop meddling in people's affairs, our troops would be safe. And one of the arguments that was made by one of the people that was mad at me for my position on Iran and my position on Israel, one of the arguments was made, our troops are safer at military bases in the Middle East than they would be in American cities right now. Yes, that was said. Somebody disagreeing with me about my position on being an anti-interventionist. I am not an isolationist. I believe we should be doing all sorts of Austrian economics, capitalism, all over the world. I believe the whole world should be open to free trade. Americans should be doing free trade all over the world. I 100% believe in that. But we should not be involving ourselves militarily in places like Poland. Like my friend Pam here, her son is deployed to Poland right now. And we all know why they're in Poland. It's because they're building up to protect Europe for what they know is going to end up being a long, protracted war if we don't end the aid to Ukraine. But this person had the audacity to say troops are safer at military bases in the Middle East than they would be in American cities. That is the most asinine, warmongering garbage I have ever seen. And it's those people that will not come on and have a conversation about it because they can throw out stupid things like that in the comment section and know that all of the blind followers around them will go, yeah, that's a really good point. We have bad cities. You want to know why our cities are bad right now? Because we let the uniparty rule over us. And that's what they want. They want the chaos. Yeah, that's what I said earlier, Angry Vet. Get rid of NATO. Folks, it's okay to hate Iran's government. It's okay to hate the government of Israel. Exactly, AVA. There's absolutely nothing about being a patriotic American that demands you love Iran or love Israel. The 100% best way for you to be a true American patriot, whether you consider yourself a little to the left of the Overton window or a little to the right of the Overton window or right down the dead center middle, or you consider yourself to be paleo-libertarian like I am, the best way to be a patriot is to demand our troops come home. And stop meddling in the affairs of every other country in the world. Be liberty-minded. Be an anti-interventionist. End all of these goddamn wars. We shouldn't be fighting them. And we damn sure should not be attacking other countries preemptively, claiming self-defense. Because the United States, and I do not believe in moral equivalency. I really don't. But I also do not believe that the United States has some form of moral high ground that says that we have somehow earned the right to dictate to other countries what weapons they can and cannot have because we've determined and labeled them to be the bad guy. Look, we the people of the United States, we're not the bad guys. The bad guys are the people that we foolishly continue to send into office, expecting them to do the right thing. It's time to clean house. From now on, if you have in your platform any support for any foreign country, anywhere in your platform, I don't care if it's Israel, I don't care if it's Iran, I don't care if it's Ukraine, I don't care if it's Russia, I don't care if it's China, I don't care if it's a European country, I don't care who it is. You don't get to hold office anymore. It needs to end. We should not be allied in an entangling way with anybody else in any other country. And the two parties. It's time for us to stop creating wars that give us broken and wounded veterans, many of which you cannot ever see their wounds because they're in here. They're in here. And they're in here. It's time to bring our troops home. And it's time that we stop defending Israel and linking ourselves to any country at all. Bring our troops home. End the wars. Stop supporting other countries. And stop being okay with the U.S. and Israel bombing little brown people all over the Middle East and other places of the world. It's time to end it. Once again, if you disagree with anything I said and you'd like to sit down and have a conversation, reach out to Skipper. And he will moderate. I will gladly have a conversation with you if you disagree with me. But I guarantee you my position is the one that is most concerned for protecting our troops, protecting our people, and making America first. I'm 100% more American first than anybody that wants to bomb another country for any reason. I think we're talking about the wrong kind of people there. Tav, I love you, Tav. Guys, I gotta go. I got groceries in the car and I got things to do, and I didn't get a lot of sleep last night, and I'm pretty tired. So Tav, thanks so much for stopping in. Everybody else, thank you for being here. If you haven't become a channel member yet, please do become a channel member. Your guys' support is what pays my bills, honestly. It when it comes to the internet and all of that. If it wasn't for the people who watch, if it wasn't for the money that I get through channel memberships and super chats and views, every little bit helps. So channel membership's great. If you want to go through Subscribestar, you can do that. You can check out my Subscribestar, the Minnesota Black Robe Regiment on Subscribestar. Otherwise, channel membership's here. Share it out so people watch. And once again, the invite's out there. I would love to have anybody at all who wants to have this conversation moderated by Skipper in a civil way. I'm more than happy to have it. And if you know people who would disagree with me, share this with them, because I'd love to hear their thoughts. So my friends, until next time, fight for your freedom, it is yours. Thank you for being here. Fight for your liberty, it belongs to you. And Sic Semper, Tyrannis.